Please call roll.
Houston. Present.
Haley.
Present.
Lehman.
Present.
Lewis.
Present.
Musgrave.
Present.
Kingston.
Present.
Burks.
Present.
Okay. Welcome everybody. Now is the time for comments from employees and public. We'll be granted 5 minutes to do so. Who would like to be first?
I don't do this, and this is way out of my comfort zone, and so bear with me because I'm a little nervous. My name is Amanda Miller. I'm a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse for over 20 years. I've worked in various hospital settings, ICU units, clinics. I understand the science. I'm not here to debate the scientific behind mask, not mask. That's really not why I'm here. Right now, I am currently filling in as your substitute nurse to school. I'm at the front line with your children. I am seeing upward of 35 kids a day who are sick, who I'm sending home. Parents are yelling at me for sending their sick children home or being quarantined. I'm just asking everyone to be kind and to respect each other. Is the main point, is what I'm getting at right there. We don't have to be hateful to each other, but the big thing is we do need to keep our kids in school. That is where they're healthy and they are safe when they are here. When the governor stated the mask mandate or made any new rules, really, I'd like to know the reasoning behind why we have these rules. We have these rules because we are in a pandemic. Like it or not, there is a pandemic going on. People are sick. We all know people that are sick. We know people that are dying. We know people that have had it and not been sick. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but we are in a pandemic, and we cannot deny that. And as your board members, you're here to protect us and protect our kids. I do feel like masks help. They obviously would keep our kids in school and not have all of our kindergartners out. But like I said, I'm not going to get into that. When you said that you weren't going to do masks at the last board meeting, I was okay with that, but I also expected there would be another plan implemented. Let's say we're going to put plexiglass up. We're going to not only do excess cleaning, this is the plan that we are going to do to ensure that your kids are safe. We are going to teach the kids on how to be healthy, how to eat two fruits and vegetables a day, get exercise, get natural vitamin D. But you as a board member did not implement any of these things that we could also keep our kids healthy. And that is the biggest thing. I would have just liked to see a plan behind that. Like I said, since working as your school nurse, I'm on the front line, and these kids need to be here. And with the guidelines, if you wear a mask, then you get to test to stay, and it keeps your kids in school. When I call these parents and they get mad, I can take it. I mean, I did maybe cry once or twice, but I can take it. But then I also know these kids are going to go home, and these parents are going to take it out on them for going home sick. We, as teachers, as educators, sometimes we give these kids the only hugs that they get for weeks at a time. We love on them, and I just want to keep them in school. And I get it, you hate being told what to do. I hate being told what to do. I don't want a governor in Chicago telling me what to do and what's best for my child. That's not it. I also don't feel like your rights are being taken away. My husband is an Iraqi war veteran. He served 14 months in Iraq, and he's not standing up here right now today because he works at Marathon and he's required to wear a mask. And he said he's not going to make that decision for anybody else when he has to do it himself. So if any of you guys are in your workplace and you have to wear a mask, why aren't you telling your employers, you know what, that's against my rights? But you guys are gambling with our teachers' pensions and so many other things. It's scary, and I get it. I hear that there's laws, they don't have the right to do that. What if there's a chance that they do, and it does come through? I don't know. I don't know the answers, and I'm not going to stand up here and pretend like I do, but I am going to end with one note. One of the mothers of a student today that got sent home sent me this email and asked me to read it at the board tonight because she couldn't be here. It says, "To the board and those in attendance, my name is Jennifer Odell. I cannot be here tonight because my daughter has been quarantined due to contact, and I don't have anyone to stay with her. Many of you know my son has an autoimmune disease, and we'll just say it's JDM for short. He takes several medications daily that suppress his immune system. These medications are needed just to keep him going. As many of your children are, he is too young for the vaccine, and if he were to get COVID, he is too young for the therapeutic infusion treatment. Yes, when the case numbers were low, I was also not for masking my child. However, with the increase in our area, I really do feel like they can help. Yes, my children are currently wearing masks and being bullied for wearing them, but we have to protect our immunocompromised kiddos. Just look at the number of students that we have out right now. I will not tell you what to do or try to change your minds. I do not have that right. I want everyone to have the right to choose for themselves, but I also need to protect my child. I just ask that if you take my child into consideration when making this decision. Imagine if it was your child that was immunocompromised and possibly not strong enough to fight COVID like the other kids in his class. Would you not want others to consider your child and their situation? Would you not want others to try and protect your child? That hits me close to home because I see these sick kids in my office every single day. And I have a diabetic, and I have kids like Shaylin. I have kids that if they were to get COVID, it might not be the best outcome for them. And at the end of the day, if my mask will save one person from getting very, very sick, it's worth it. It is worth it to save these children. And I don't know. I always feel like I need to do what, and I don't want to be religious, but I want to do what Jesus would want me to do. And he does leave his herd to get that one sheep that's on the side. And if Shaylin's that one sheep that we can protect, why wouldn't we as a community protect this immunocompromised child? I know that I would be up here begging if it was mine. Thank you.
I have a feeling that this is not going to go well tonight, and I would just urge the school board, if our recommendations aren't going to sway you and change your mind, you might just want to shut this down and take the vote now. Because I can counterpoint every point that comes up here. Because I've also got a kid that's quarantined right now, but told my wife last night he doesn't think anyone wants him alive because he has to be quarantined and he's alive. So I can use that emotional argument. I can use the argument that I have an autoimmune son who has Down syndrome. He's okay. I have a feeling that if we let this go, and again, everyone's welcome to their opinion. But what we're going to do is, if you've already made your choice, listen, I know it's a hard choice to make, and even if I don't like it, I'll be there. But if we let this community tear each other apart by what we say, what good is it for us? We know what our community wants because we've had 2 meetings already. 2. Without police, without cameras. And we knew what we wanted. But now all of a sudden we want something different. And I get it. Because our state is bullying us. We're on probation right now. They're going to take our IHSA seating away right now. They're bullying us. I get it. I'm just telling you as a board, if you've already decided, maybe we should just take a vote. That way we save our community from coming against each other. And maybe hating each other for these choices that we make. That's all I got to say.
Diane Boner, believe it or not, I'm not going to talk for her, but okay. It's still America, and she is free to make her own decision, even if it's a bad one. Those were the exact words that I heard Sunday afternoon spoken to me by a hospital caseworker regarding my mother. I'm doubting the veracity of that statement right now. It is still America, but we are no longer free to make our own decisions. I have in my hand here 4 scholarly journal articles. I'm not talking U.S. News and World Report, Wikipedia, or Newsweek. These are scholarly, scientific journals with scientific research that bring into question the efficacy and benefits of masks. The first article is a primary source, meaning original research, that presents research including the procedure, findings, discussions. It is entitled Experimental Investigation of Indoor Aerosol Dispersion and Accumulation in the Context of COVID-19, Effects of Masks and Ventilation. It was published July 21st, 2021, so it is very recent. The findings: commonly used cloth masks and blue surgical masks are only 10 to 12% effective when used properly. If the mask is touched, worn below the nose, worn loosely, or tugged or pulled away from the mouth while speaking, the efficacy drops significantly. The remaining 3 articles were sent to each of you on the board and Mr. Patchett. Since I received only 2 acknowledgments in response, I'll briefly summarize those items. The second article is called New Danish Study Finds Masks Don't Protect Wearers from COVID Infection, November 18, 2020. It states that, quote, researchers had hoped that masks would cut the infection rate by half among wearers. Instead, 1.8% got infected compared with 2.1%. The difference was not statistically significant. By replacing individual choice with collective mandates, public officials have politicized the issue and polluted the science. End of quote. Article 3, Masking Children, Tragic, Unscientific, and Damaging, March 10, 2021, published by the American Institute for Economic Research. Conclusion, quote, to close, masking children is as absurd, illogical, nonsensical, and potentially dangerous as trying to stop every case of COVID or stopping COVID at all costs. Masks are not needed for children based on near zero risk in children. The issue of masks in children is really a risk management question for parents and any decision maker. The science is settled. End of quote. The last article, New Study Finds COVID Masks Harm Children's Physical and Mental Health, published in Principia Scientific International, February 15, 2021, addresses specific harm as seen in a study involving 25,000 school-aged children. It revealed 24 distinct health issues associated with wearing masks. These issues affected 68% of masked children who were forced to wear a mask for an average of 4.5 hours per day. These included increased headaches, 53%, difficulty concentrating, 50%, drowsiness or fatigue, 37%, malaise, 42%. Nearly 1/3 of the children experienced more sleep issues than they had previously, and 1/4 developed new fevers. Additionally, 29.7% experienced shortness of breath, 26.4% dizziness, and hundreds experienced accelerated respiration, tightness in the chest, weakness, and even short-term impairment of consciousness. Given these studies, please explain how you can agree that mask usage should be required and failure to do so is a significant health hazard to our students. If you cave to ISBE's threats, you are indeed in full agreement with ISBE and flying in the face of science. Given that last article, I would say putting them in masks is a greater risk than them not having them. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ann.
Same, I've been a nurse for over 20 years. I've worked in intensive care, I've worked in surgery, I've worked in cardiac cath lab, and I've worn a mask a lot for all those things. And I suck at it most of the time. Because, like Mrs. Bomer just said, sorry, I just talked to Mrs. Bomer, who also taught me in debate class. The thing is, guys, is like, these kids aren't doing it right. Because I'm an adult who was literally trained in school to do it right, and I still don't do it right most of the time. So do I think that it matters that they're in a mask 100% of the time? Nope. But do I like wearing a mask? Nope. Do my kids like wearing it? Nope. But what Amanda's saying that she cried a couple times because parents were mean to her. Just so you know, I ain't gonna cry about a parent being mean to me. But what I will cry about, what I do go home and get sad about at night, is the amount of kids that have said to me, Pritzker sucks. And the amount of kids that have said to me, please don't tell my dad that I came in here sick because he'll be mad because he'll think that it's gonna mean I get quarantined. Guys, that's not okay. Like what Justin said, we are tearing this apart. Like, we are not doing our kids any service. We are not teaching them about leadership when we are saying things poorly about leaders in our community, leaders in our country. And whether we like it or not, the majority of the people in the state voted for these leaders. Whether we voted for them and we liked them, we did. So that's what we have, and I don't think that we're teaching our kids anything by bucking leadership this hatefully. So, like Amanda said, there could be measures put in place, like plastic screens, increased sanitation, things that could be put in place. And I'm all for those things. But at this point, in the time-sensitive matter, and the fact that we have a cost-effective matter, because as far as I understand, no one here has raised their hand to fund this school, we are going to have to do something that's quick and cost-effective, and at this point, it's masks. And even if we don't think they work, like, we don't need to get in that fight. The point is, we have to do something so that our kids can play their sports, come to school, and graduate with a diploma that counts. So, that's it. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Lori Davis, and there are a lot of good points, but I think it really states that it's like the local control is being taken away, and I think that's the deepest part of this argument, is that our community is being forced by outside sources to reconsider our decisions. Whenever I was a kid, there was a song that came out, and it was by Aaron Tippin, and it was, "You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything." And he says, "You've got to be your own man, not a puppet on the string. Never compromise what's right, but uphold your family name. You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything." And like Mrs. Bomer said, there's all these, there's all these studies and this one's
It's on top.
It's on top. Sorry, I can't stop it. But anyway, like Mrs. Bomer said, the statistics go against masks. And it would be nice if we were allowed to make that decision for our own community. And like Mr. Schweitzer said, we're being bullied into, changing or altering our previous decision. Representative Blaine Wilhauer had posted something, and he was talking about the probation issue, and he was going through different points. And one of the points that really stood out to me was that Article 10 of the Illinois Constitution requires free elementary and secondary education for all students. So he asked, if a student is stripped of its funding, what would the state do with those students? We've got one Oblong school. What could they do? So anyway, he asked that question. I thought that was a pretty strong argument, As far as options, there was a notice of legal action filed in Algonquin, Illinois, and it was See Them Smile, Inc. It was filed as a notice of legal action against the governor's mask mandate. It was on August 12th of 21. And
If you go to Unmask Our Children, Kankakee County, Illinois, it's on that Facebook site. But I read through some of this the other night, and the lawyer who was sponsoring, who was doing this notice, he was saying any district that wanted to be represented, if they gathered $1,000, you know, that each district, if they had their $1,000, they would have a point person, and that person would be kind of the holder of that $1,000. And that money that was collected was for the purpose of continuing the fight against Governor Pritzker. And like the other people have said, it's not about the mask. It's about the ability to make our own decisions. And I don't think that this is going to get any better, which totally stinks, because it would be nice to say, okay, we'll take this year, and it'll make it all better. But, I mean, he just said that all healthcare workers and all teachers, you know, he just put out this mandate on them. Some of our most educated professionals, and he's going to act like they're not educated enough to make their own decisions. I mean, I'm appalled that a governor would say, you're not smart enough to make that health decision for yourself, Mr. Doctor, Mrs. Nurse. You know, I'm going to make that decision for you. And I think that's pretty, I can't think of the right word, but arrogant, yes. It's pretty arrogant to tell some of our most educated individuals, teachers, you know, people who teach kids how to do research, you know, you're not smart enough, I'm going to make the decision for you. I mean, that's, and I'm afraid this is just the beginning, but the point is that instead of him saying, you make your own decisions for your own community, he's saying, these are my rules for the schools. Okay, now these are my rules for the teachers, and these are my rules for the healthcare professionals. And I'm afraid that if we don't fight this now, it will just become it'll keep going. You know, then he'll mandate something else and something else. You know, that bill, 2789 failed. So they had to figure out how to get something through that gave him this power. So now they've got House Bill 4135. And, you know, he's just determined to have this power. And so anyway, it just stinks. And I hate that for you guys because you're between a rock and a hard place. But in my opinion, you know, as hard as it would be, you know, I think, you know, about like biographies that people wrote at the beginning of World War II, like priests and things who said, we didn't fight Hitler going in. We kind of disagreed with them. We didn't think it would get this bad. And they didn't fight, and they didn't fight, and they kept trying to be peaceful. They kept trying to agree and say, we'll go along with it. It's not this bad. You know, we can do this. We can do this. And pretty soon they slid that far enough down that hill, they realized what Hitler had in mind. And I think this may be not. This isn't Nazi Germany. But how far is this going to go downhill before we look back up the hill and said, we should have fought when we were up there near the top, rather than when we were down at the bottom. We're nowhere to go.
I just have a few questions. I don't know whether I'm just going to read them, and then you can respond to them as you will. If I need to repeat those, I can do so. In July, this body made a decision that you would not allow CRT and the filth of SB 818 to be taught in our schools. We were assured by you that that would be the case. I wonder whether or not that is still going to be in effect, since ISB has real teeth where curriculum is concerned. They will probably be coming at you and wanting you to change that, and frankly, they have very little authority in regard to the masks, is what I have been able to read and ascertain, even from the JCAR, the folks who are on the Joint Committee for Agencies and Regulations in our state's capital. So I wonder whether or not you'll be able to stand your ground in that, or if we will cave in that. And the teacher, or one of the parents asked me to ask this: if a student refuses to wear a mask, will they be barred entry from the school? That's number one. If a student tries to gain entry without a mask, will a member of the school administration physically restrain the student? Also, will a student, if suspended, will that student be suspended if that is the case? Furthermore, if a student is suspended and continues to attend school and classes, will the school then physically try to remove that individual if from school. You can address those as you wish, or if you need me to repeat them, I can.
Thank you.
I'll go in the best order I can. As far as physically, you said something about physically. No, I'm not going to put my hands on a student. If we have a mask mandate, our approach is going to be to explain to the student if the school board passes, to comply with the 2021 COVID update that has the governor's executive order. I'm going to ask them all to comply. My understanding is that I'm to exclude students if they don't wear the mask. And I'm still working getting definition of what that is, but I'm confident that with the vast majority of them, if I say, hey, the school board passed this, I'm asking you to wear the mask, that they will. But there'll not be anybody that will be physically barred from entering the school. So I'm hoping that'll be effective. It's just explaining to them and talking to them and asking them to comply because the school board approved it. As far as the CRT, I've never seen anything from the state board about that, as far as mandating that or making us do that. As far as the sex education bill, we talked about that, and I've been keeping close tabs on that as well. And my understanding is that if we choose not to provide any type of sex education, if you choose to provide sex education, it's supposed to be that curriculum. If you choose not to provide that, then you don't have to teach that. And so our sex education curriculum in the past has been the Cradle program. One of the members of the audience is a key integral person in teaching that. That's what we've done in the past. It was created by a local pastor. The curriculum was put together by a local pastor, and that's what we've taught in the past. But as far as the mandate goes, if I see something that says we can't teach anything except that, then our plan would be not to teach anything, as we said in June. Did I answer them all? I'm sorry. Okay.
Will the child be suspended?
No, there'll be no suspensions, expulsions, that sort of thing. I don't believe there's any type of authority for suspension, no.
So my question also much really about the mask. I have to wear a mask every day at work. I understand sometimes you got to play the political game. My question is about these students that are being quarantined and not being allowed to come back after 14 days. There's no remote learning this year. Every day that they are quarantined and stuck at home, they're falling behind. So my question is there some way that I know I've been in contact with a couple other people from surrounding counties, they have modified when a child can come back. After three days, they can get a test, an over-the-counter FDA-approved test from Walmart, not a test from the health department. And if it's negative, they take another one at day 5, and at day 5, if it's negative, they're allowed to come back to school. Is that something that you might all consider? Because I have been in contact with this health department, and they said they will follow whatever guidelines that the school board states. That is what the county across from us is doing. The state's attorney is in on it. The health department is in on it, and these kids are getting back to school a lot sooner than 14 days. That's really all about it. Would that be something you would consider?
Sorry. So what you're talking about is the different options for returning after being quarantined. So first of all, I want to be clear: the health department does the quarantine, not the school. But currently, a document that looks like this that you can get off the state board's website. It's the revised guidance for schools, and on that, on page 17, starting on page 17, it has 3 different options for return to school. One of them is the 14 days. The second one is 10 days if there's no symptoms. The third one is you can test after 6 days and come back to school. And then the third option is test the state protocol. The problem is that option 2, 3, and the test the state protocol is only an option in schools that require universal masking.
So if we went to universal masking,
Then you can do those. Then you're eligible to do those things. And I've said I don't want to get too far outside your question, but I've said from the very beginning, my biggest concern is the quarantine. From even last year, kids being out of school, I just want them here. Any way we can get them here. And so I don't want to speak for the board, but I'm confident in saying that there's any way that we can get them back as soon as possible with the health department. I mean, that would be something that I think we could all agree on.
Sometimes you got to play the game. I mean, if that's what you have to do to get them back in school.
Okay, so Kendra Bailey, and just to add what this gentleman was saying, Illinois law, the health department can quarantine someone for 48 hours. That's the law. We have a lawman on our school board. If anybody has any questions, ask him. That is the law. After 48 hours, they have to get a court order. So the health department is continuing to quarantine healthy kids. I want to make that distinction. Healthy kids, contact tracing, they are quarantining them just by calling parents up, and people are agreeing to it. You do not have to do that. They have to get a court order. They can quarantine you or your child for 48 hours. 48 hours. After that, they have to get a court order. Now, a court may force you to quarantine, okay? But the health department has to get a court order. And everybody has just been complying with the health department up to this point. And, you know, I think we have a couple positive cases in the school right now. Is that correct? Can you tell me about how many individuals are quarantined?
We currently have 4 active and 2 just returned from the inactive.
Okay, but I'm sorry, about how many are quarantined just related? 103? Most of those are healthy kids. Parents, you have to start fighting back against the health department. I am not trying to make this harder for the school. This is on the health department. They have to go through the state. They have to get the court order. People have to push back on this. Okay? And as far as, you know, the nurses said, you know, they're seeing sick kids. Do you know why? Probably because parents know there's too much to lose. If I keep a kid home with a runny nose, I got to keep him home for 14 days. A lot of parents have to work, the quarantine is a huge problem. And you know what? I don't know if we need to start going to the Board of Health meetings or what, but parents, you have to, it's 48 hours, this is the law. So I just want to stress that. And I would ask the board that, you know, maybe we look at this, right? Maybe you guys consider taking a vote that after 48 hours, we have to see an order, a court order for healthy kids. I want to make that distinction. Healthy kids. We can't keep healthy kids at home. So there's that. You know, beyond that, everybody's talking about the masks, but now we're looking at the, you know, the mandate, not a law, for our staff to either vaccinate or be tested. Okay, again, Illinois law, you have the healthcare right of conscience act. Okay, so that includes, you know, no staff member should be forced to vaccinate or test. And, you know, I really would like to know, you know, where you guys stand on that. If we're, you know, if this falls along the same line as the masks, are we going to go along with that because the governor and ISBE said it? Okay, it's a law. Staff members, nobody should be forced to vaccinate or test. But I think this is important. And you know what? We're going to come for your kids next, okay? I understand you guys don't want to be in this position, but you're going to be in this position, you know, a year from now. We may be doing this a year from now, and we've got to decide where we're going to draw the line. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I don't know about you guys, first time doing all this. I think it's cool what they're trying to do. You have a cold, you're automatically tested, you got the COVID, automatically. Kids today, last year we went through it. Our kids come home, they was automatically tired. Everyone's pretty much right. The mask is dragging the people down. pretty much stand their ground and try to and fight for this country.
Hello again, just like a bad penny. First, you guys know, nobody wants to fight. We all like you guys. We're just sorry you have to listen to us month after month after month. I kind of wanted to take this in a little different direction. It looks like us against you guys. But there's other entities involved that are not here. And you would think if they had a big part in it, they should be. So I went and looked at some mottos of each of the entities, and Oblong schools, educating students for tomorrow. Okay, that's good. Then we move up a little bit on the totem pole, and regional superintendent of schools. I'm like, well, what do they do? Have they been here before to help give you guys any guidance? Well, they serve about 5 counties. They help learn technology support, truancy and safe school services, bus driver training, legal advice. You get the picture. All the things about students and those who take care of the students. Well, then we bump up the ladder a little bit to the Illinois State Board of Education. Our word that we love now is ISB. So what's their purpose? Well, they set educational policies and guidelines for public and private schools. And what's their mission? Well, their mission is to provide each and every child with safe and healthy learning conditions, great educators, and equitable opportunities by practicing data, informed stewardship of resources, and policy development, all done in partnership with educators, families, and stakeholders. And just a couple weeks ago, they had a board meeting in Springfield, and this is from an article from that, and I assume the doctor in charge of that wrote this. But it said at last week's ISB board meeting, we heard a robust public comment about the universal indoor masking requirements for all Illinois schools. Okay, keep that, Illinois, she said that. Keep that in your head. As I stated at the meeting, ISB will continue to follow the science, follow the data, and the guidance of public health officials regarding masking. Keep in mind this article was written by ISB representing Illinois. It goes on, the consequences of the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics is that masks should be required for everyone in all schools. Right now, she says, across the country. Now we've moved from Illinois, now we're talking about across the country. And especially in states with no mitigations in place, ISB is seeing pediatric ICUs at capacity. I thought, my goodness, ISB is very busy. Now they are checking pediatric ICUs and they're at capacity. We are seeing hospitals in other states having to turn away cancer patients and heart attack victims because of no beds. I'm sorry, but is this pertinent to ISB, according to their mission? The write-up then states, last week, this is from her report, last week a teenager in Virginia died due to complications from COVID. So I did Google that, and sure enough, a Norfolk teen died of COVID complications. Then 3 spots down, a Michigan teenager died in his sleep after getting the COVID vaccine. This was in July of 21. One more mission statement I want to leave with you is from the Crawford County Health Department. Promoting health, preventing illnesses, and protecting the environment. We are your local health department, and we work for you. So, all that to say, you know, I don't want there to be, as Pastor Justin said, any fighting between any of us, because we all are for the common goal. But I would just say that we really need to watch who says what and not accept everything that's said as the pure truth unless we find it out. And that we work hard to know that what we are saying or telling our kids, because they're getting that off us, you know, and I'm just as bad, and probably worse, as anyone else, you know, saying things. Some of the little kids sent home, they probably think that, you know, they can't go and see any other kids for another year and a half because they've got a dreaded disease that they'll never recover from. We don't know what goes on in little kids' heads, you know. So I just encourage everybody to not be quick on the trigger. Let's really think this out. And for those entities that have a mission statement and are kind of held to what they're supposed to be doing, let's hold them to that. Don't let them get in our box when they got their own box to take care of. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ava Livin, and I kind of want to speak about what Kendra said. I was under the impression from last school year that every single thing I was told about quarantine was true. We followed it. We had a child who was told to quarantine. I didn't question anything. I went with it. This school year, before the school year, I started to dig into things, trying to figure out, I'm looking at my time to make sure I don't go over 5 minutes, to try to figure out what is the law, what are the rights. I have found out that there are things that are not being conducted lawfully. Schools are not to call anyone until then they're under quarantine. I spoke to 2 attorneys in the last 2 days regarding that, Illinois attorneys. What is supposed to, and this is what I'm understanding, and this is what I was told. Schools are supposed to give the information to health departments. Health departments then take that information and do with it what they need to do. The school is just to provide the information to the health department. The next part to that is they contact someone and say you're under quarantine. At that point, you have 24 hours from that phone call, from the health department, not from a school person. You have 24 hours after that phone call to quarantine yourself or whoever they're asking. After 48 hours, if you do not receive paperwork, and that's not a court order, but if you do not receive paperwork stating that you're to be under a quarantine order signed by a judge, you're free to go. You're free to go. So, after 24 hours, after a phone call, you have to be quarantined. After 24 hours, if you do not receive paperwork, you're free to go. If you do receive paperwork, and it says voluntary at the top of the paper, there's 4 papers to this, it says voluntary at the top and there's not a judge's signature, you have to be quarantined for 48 hours. After 48 hours, without a court order signed by a presiding judge, not signed by the director of the health department, because she is not a judge, the person is free to go without a court order. And I'm afraid that's not happening. I'm afraid we're all not understanding our rights, going under fear, and trying to just toe the line. And I'm not trying to cause a problem. I'm not disrespecting anyone here. I think we should all be equipped with knowing what our rights are, especially now. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I guess it's my turn now. Mike Cheeseman. Like several others, we've been up here a few times over the last couple of months, and I really appreciate the job that each and every one of you do. And those decisions, they're not getting any easier. Probably not going to get any easier anytime soon. We've heard about a couple of House bills. One passed the House, didn't make it out of Senate. The other one hasn't even been able to go to committee yet. Those two bills demonstrate that ISBE right now truly doesn't have the power or the authority to make the determination for our school district. That still lies with us if we decide to claim that, hold it, and fight for it. The governor's executive orders, while the Illinois Constitution says that they do bear weight, they can't necessarily go against the other laws of the state of Illinois. Long story short, this mask thing, I'm a person of, it should be a choice of an individual, not mandated to someone. If someone feels a mask works, then great, wear it. If not, hey, that's okay too. For me, it's more, it seems to me that there are elected officials and appointed boards that are trying to strip power and strip authority away from the local elements. And I don't want to fight with anyone here either. But I urge you, as you make this decision, it's very hard, to stand with what the community has instructed already a couple of times and not mandate the mask. And then contact other districts. Right now there are roughly 20. I was on the ISBE website earlier today. There are still roughly 20 school districts, maybe a little more than that, that are out on probation. So I urge you all, as a school district, to vote no mask and then follow up with those other school districts and say, what can we do to hold on to our rights? The public in our individual districts has said, this is what we want. I know you all have heard many differing opinions, and mine is just one of. So, like Justin said, I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to be here. I'll still help out how I can. But if asked me, my opinion is that's the route you should go. Takes a board, and you have quite the road ahead, seems like, no matter which way this goes. So, thanks again, and I appreciate y'all.
Can I ask a question? Is there room for, I guess, compromise? Here's kind of what I'm asking. Like, for example, if in your protocol you said if I'm going to pick a random number, 25% of the students are positive, then we will institute a masking. Or if there is 25% positive, I remember back in the days when I was at Cumberland and we had a flu epidemic that went through and 28% of the students were gone. We shut down the school 2 days early for Christmas break. Is there that type of possibility that could exist? Or does it have to follow exactly what ISD says?
The early guidance calls for a step approach, but that anytime that the governor had that executive order active, then that superseded it. So if you look at other schools' plans that voted with local, when it was local control for that brief period before the governor, they voted to create exactly what you're talking about, because with local control, they wanted everybody to have masks if there was a high positivity rate or a high outbreak rate. And as those numbers came down, so they didn't have to have a meeting every time to decide is now the time to take away masks. So that information is out there.
I would recommend that you consider that.
In your meeting with the team, did they give you like metrics? Any metrics like for when the mask will go away?
No. That you've read the letter that I've published from them or posted from them. It was essentially going over all of those things.
I just wanted to let you know I was concerned, and I talked to Darren Bailey actually this morning about, I don't remember the bill numbers, you guys find the bill number that gives Springfield the authority to do what they are currently saying that they will do, but they don't have the law in place yet. 4135. So Darren, this is Darren's opinion, and I'm summarizing what Darren said because I have a crap memory, so I'm not going to quote it. But Darren said this bill basically has no traction. He said even his colleagues on the left side of the aisle are very against this bill because it takes power from the local school boards. And we talked at length about different things, but he just was assuring me over and over and over again that this bill won't pass. And I said, but Darren, what if it does pass? I said, what if you're completely wrong and this bill is going to pass? And let's say Oblong School decides to go no mask. And in 3 months, or however long it takes for this bill to pass, in 3 months, that passes through the House, and all of a sudden Oblong finds itself in violation of the law. I said, can they immediately have an emergency school board meeting and change their mind, so to speak, to be within the law? Do you think that they would have any power to come back against the school for what they've been doing in the past up until the point that the law passed? He said, absolutely not. I mean, he laughed at it. So I just want to give you guys that assurance that hopefully our future governor, and he's very interested in what happens here tonight, but and he couldn't be here because he's in Springfield during session, or we're in session. But just know that they're threatening something that has a law that's on the floor at the House that's not even been voted on. It doesn't have teeth. And for a senator to say basically, if you do change your mind and go with it if it happens to pass, which he says it's not going to pass, then you guys are all okay too. Our school's going to be okay. So I just wanted to convey that.
My question is that hasn't really been brought up, and it's about the sports. And I'm thankful that my kids are younger, and sports are very important to our family. And I mean, if we wait, we do wait, and you guys agree, no mask, and we're still on probation, and that's what you guys go with. What does that do for our athletes right now? Because there's obviously on this time frame. So that means like our golf team is not going to be able to compete at regionals, sectionals. Is that what I'm understanding that part correct? And I get it, we're in a pandemic and sports shouldn't be important, but to these kids in the hallways, I hear them saying, I'll wear a mask if I get to play sports, if I get to make, do these, fun things. That high school and middle school is all about, is going to regionals and sectionals. So I'm just curious, since we have a time frame, if we don't make this decision to do masks by what was it, September 5th, 22nd or something, our golf team's not going to be able to compete at regionals. Our football team will not be able to, if they go to regional, any of our sports, our volleyball teams. Is that my understanding? That is correct. And I don't want to put sports as an importance because I'm a nurse and we are in a healthcare crisis, blah, 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 I get it. But I also have kids that are athletic and they compete. And I can also sympathize with a lot of the parents in our community that do have kids that do want to do those things, and the kids in our school are willing to wear masks and put it aside for now so that they can compete. So I just was wanting to clarify that, also.
Thank you. I did post as part of the announcement for tonight. You are correct. It's September 3rd, so Friday for junior high baseball and softball. It's September 22nd for girls and boys golf. October 7th for volleyball, and October 23rd for IHSA football playoff eligibility. If you're on probation during those days, you're not eligible for postseason activity. And that's all that the IHSA and IESA did. It was through the fall and spring, through the fall sports. They didn't go into winter or spring. So that's all I have right now.
To talk about that a little bit too. I understand, I'm a parent, and I know how disappointing it is sometimes to have to tell our kids, hey, you're not going to get to do that. Hey, you're not going to get to do that. But I also understand that some things are worth fighting for, and if my son's disappointed because he can't play a sport, when I sit down and explain, that's an opportunity for me to sit down with him and say, here's the bigger picture. This is a life lesson, and this is an opportunity for a life lesson about our freedoms. My husband's also a vet. I have a lot of respect for Mrs. Miller. She has taken care of my kids before in the nurse's office. They love her, but I know that those disappointments can become opportunities for parents to use that time wisely and teach our kids important life lessons. Yes, life is disappointing sometimes. You're not going to get to compete this year in basketball, but your dad sacrificed 6 years of his life fighting for this country and for these freedoms that we have. So the bigger picture here is more important than whether or not you're going to get to play basketball this year. And I know that it's disappointing, and I don't want to have to be the person to tell my kid they're not going to get to play. But again, I think sometimes it's important that we use those moments as teaching moments for our kids. I would also like to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Ava and Mike have said. I mean, Ava was talking about our rights, and Jonathan again mentioned House Bill 4135. I sent everyone an email. Everyone sitting up here this weekend got an email from me with the details of that. I got a couple of acknowledgments, and Mr. Patch answered some questions that he was able to answer. But if we haven't even yet voted on whether, let's see what it says. So the synopsis includes a couple of important sentences I'd like to read out. Allows the state board to revoke recognition for schools that fail to comply. That means they can't revoke it. Prohibits a school board from passing any resolution that contravenes any public health requirements. So as of now, you can do whatever you want. And I understand the importance of leadership and teaching our kids not to talk down or think down of leaders, because I believe that every leader is put in a position and that we should respect them as best we can and not talk down to them. But while the governor does have some powers, he doesn't have this power, and ISB doesn't have this power. You have that power. We've also put you in positions of power. Everyone here. And so I would just like to ask that you not give away the power that the voters have entrusted to you. Everyone here has voted for everyone here, but you all got in a good percentage of the vote to these school board members. We have entrusted the power of this community to you. So I am asking that you not disrespect us and give that power away when we know our rights. You all have read this. I sent it all to you. You've seen it multiple times, I'm sure, from multiple people. You know what powers you hold right now. So if you choose to give that power away, to me, that is a show of disrespect to the people in this community who voted to give that power to you. give it away? That's the question I have for every board member now, and I would like an answer. Are you going to give away the power that we have entrusted to you?
It's an answer will come when we vote. Just have to vote on it and see what happens.
Oblong is on probation status, along with a lot of other districts. Have any other districts gone to non-recognized open masks? Any other districts in Illinois? I know that there were some private schools that did.
Yes.
Any public school districts have gone to non-recognized open masks?
No public school that I know of.
No.
They're on probation.
And we have how many kids out on quarantines right now? 103. And 4 positive cases and 2 suspects? What percentage of our students would be that positive? Is it 1%? 2%? And how many percent are out on quarantine?
Out of 562.
Out of 562, we have 103 kids that we have allowed the health department to quarantine for 6 cases. I don't understand how anyone understands those numbers. Can anyone give me any kind of clue as to how that computes? I mean, anybody. Does that make any sense? And I agree with Mr. Pachter that close contacts are a bigger issue. This is not about masks. As everyone has said tonight, this is not about masks. This is not about quarantines. This is about recognizing what freedoms and powers we hold as a community and making our own decisions. If you agree, and you have said it multiple times in multiple meetings now, close contacts are a problem, then I would suggest that we go back to our original plan of pre-COVID protocols. We don't have to worry about masks. You can wear them if you want. I'm not anti-masks. I'm not anti-vax. Wear them if you want. But go back then to no close contact quarantines. We're not working with the health department. We're not going to let them take out 25% of our population for 6 cases, 4 cases, 2 possible cases. That is what I would suggest to the board tonight. Thank you for listening.
I agree with all that. That's perfect. And as a person that's been doing this for 2 years, and the amount of time and energy and resources working for 2 different hospital systems, that I'm pretty frustrated at. I mean, honestly, if I'm being honest about how they've handled letting people know what to do and how to be tested. And now living in a county where my health department is also doing not the best job at getting that information out to everyone. The amount of times I've explained to patients and moms and dads and kids about, okay, so tomorrow you're going to go and get tested. Here's the places that you can do that at. That information is daunting to give to people time after time after time, because I actually do have other stuff to do too, you know? I mean, so what you're saying is completely right, and it's frustrating to be in that situation, and I'm not aware, so, you know, somebody sends me something like Ava said, I'm probably just going to sign it, like, which isn't very smart, but that's what I would do. But there are some things that we can do, like small things that I can do, because I'm just one person, and now I'm making Amanda be that person too, because we kind of got thrown into this nursing in the office thing, but we would be willing to work. We were looking through other counties and how they are getting that information to their parents and to their students and people in their community, and it's a really good cut and dry, like, if you're a close contact, if you're this, if you're vaccinated, if you're not vaccinated. It was super easy to read, super easy information, then you do this. And I don't know that we've had that yet with the health department, and I think Amanda and I would both be, whatever happens, until then, if we have to keep sending kids home, we have to keep getting them tested, I think we can have a much better way of getting a clear-cut
one piece of paper, this is the places that you can test, these are the hours that you can test, here's the phone numbers to call, because to me, that's really sad that, I don't remember who said it, but they said, I think it was Kendra, that these parents, I mean, they don't know what to do. Like, they send their kids sick because they think, crap, I have to work tomorrow, and how am I going to get somewhere? But there are testing available at 7 a.m. before school, and there is testing available late into the evening at places. So I just want to make sure that, I think we're saying that we would be willing to work with the health department and the local hospitals and clinics and things to kind of try to get that information out to parents and the community at large, just so that we could maybe make it easier for people to know what to do until we get it decided that we are or whatever's happening until we get that decided. So that's just a suggestion.
Is the local health department, are they doing court orders? Like, I was just curious if, I mean, they told me that if it came to that, they would. I
have yet to see one. Okay. I doubt we do, but it's just like you made a comment at the health department. I'll speak up now because we can't even get a hold of the health department. So trying to get a hold of them, and I understand that frustration, but we have the second place. So trying to get a hold of them.
Right, and that's why I was trying, like, when I tell parents, like, just call the health department to get help, that's not going to probably work for them because it's hard to get somebody to answer that phone. And I know they're understaffed and overworked and all those things, but I think if we had maybe a better, like, clear-cut, this is what to do for your student if they go home, that could at least help until we have a better plan. I mean, to help parents not be as scared and, like, I don't know what to do, I guess my kid just stays home for 14 days. This is not true. That's not what they have to do, but not everybody knows that. So I think that that's silly to be wasting kids being in school because the information is not given to a parent, you know? And not on you guys, I'm saying as a community, we can do better than that.
Well, it's just like the health department. They're trying to put the blame on the school now. Well, it is what it is. Where they at? You don't see any of them here.
My name is Lacey, and I'm a bus resident here. I just wanted to say that I'm one of the parents that took a chance and decided that I was going to push back to the health department. I received the letter of quarantine, the one you filled out right. I think they kind of had them ready. But I can tell you that I did not get anything from the court signed by anybody, a judge, nothing. So, I mean, technically I could send my kid back to school tomorrow if I wanted to. I wanted to know what was going to happen, but I was, just kind of waiting. So, I mean, she's perfectly healthy. We had her tested. She's negative. So, she needs to be at school. That's all I have to say.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to add that a temporary restraining order was filed against Carlisle School District. That's number 1 in Williamson County because the school district, tried to quarantine a student and there was never a court order, so they got a restraining order against the school district so that the kid got to go back to school. So I am a firm believer that the school should have it shouldn't be your man hours going into this. It ought to be between the health department and the student. They have to, and it's like, we're not leaving kids out until we see an order of quarantine. I just feel like you guys, you should be out of the whole, if you want to give them the names, I understand that. They may be asked, they do the contact tracing. I don't know what the legality is behind the actual contact tracing. I just know the whole, order of quarantine. And another thing I just wanted to quickly address was, I don't know if people know more about this than what I do, but I'm just going off of, it was in the paper. Obviously, everybody knows the Robinson football team, they canceled their first game. So it was in the newspaper, or at least the online version of it. And basically, Josh Brown reported this, and he basically took the information off of Coach Casey Pennell's Facebook page. So he basically quoted the Facebook post from the Robinson football coach, and I'm sure you're all aware of this, that the details behind this. These were Coach Pennell's words. On Wednesday, August 18th, the decision was given to us to test every single kid in our program every single day or fold up the program for the foreseeable future. Okay, and he goes on, he says some other things. I watched young men show up and get a Q-tip shoved in their nose every day and have to wait all alone in an isolated area for their test results to come back to see if they would be one of the lucky ones to get to practice that day. Okay, and so I just want to ask for clarification. I don't know if anybody knows that, but he said the decision was given to us. Was that a decision by the health department, or was the health department and the Robinson administration in on that? Because I cannot believe parents would agree to that, to have just like everybody on the football team healthy, like tested every single day. Those boys were getting tested every day and then isolated until they waited on their test results. And so I wanted to ask our board, if that situation, I want to ensure that that doesn't happen to our football team or baseball team or volleyball team or marching band or whatever. I know maybe you are familiar. I don't know if you've heard the situation. Were you aware of this? Had you seen this exact? Like I said, if you want to go to Coach Pinella's Facebook page, it's there. It's on the online version of the...
I can answer your question.
Okay.
They got their information, their guidance from the Illinois State Board of Health, and that was what they said. That
Who's they?
Casey did. Casey said they were waiting for direction from the Illinois State Board of Health, and so that's who decided that if they kids wanted to play, then they had to test the play. I'm just clarifying that they got it from not from our local board. They said we are going to have to take that to the state because we don't feel comfortable making that decision. So they went to the State Board of Health to get that decision. And the kids, they did what they could so they could play.
Okay, so that's what I don't know the legality of that. To say like, well, you can't play football unless everybody, even healthy, I want to stress that, okay? Even healthy kids tested every single day. And I would assume it didn't matter if they were vaccinated or if they had prior COVID infection, all of that stuff. And I think I'm just maybe like looking for some assurance. And I know you guys had that in the original plan, that you had no intention of, testing people or, so I guess I'm curious as to where you all stand on that, because I thought that was just a complete overreach. So.
I have a real quick question from policy. Last month's meeting, you said that if the health department quarantined our student, you would have to follow and be in compliance. So if my son's quarantined, I say 48 hours, no court order, I'm sending him back, you're going to send him back home because you're following compliance, or would you allow him to come back?
That's a great question that I spent about 2 hours on the phone trying to find out today, because all I want to do is what's right. And somebody asked, well, why does the school follow close contact? I also said last month, and for anybody that wasn't here, our school attorney and my attorney both have made it clear to me that I'm legally obligated to follow the health department's directive, and I can be held criminally liable and civilly liable, both the school district and me personally, if I don't. So what do I do if I get a kid that's brought back to school and they say, I want to put my kid back in school, and I say the health department has them identified as quarantine, and they say, well, they haven't given a court order. At that point, what I've been advised to do is call the health department and say, do you have legal background legal standing to do this? And if they tell me that they do they have the court order, at that point I'll say, I'm sorry, your child's still excluded. If they don't, they can come in. I don't want to keep anybody. I wish, I've said this from the beginning, I want as many kids back as possible.
Should they have to provide that court order? Should they have to provide you with a physical court order? It should not be verbal, right?
They don't know the law, so they're going to tell you yes.
The question that I've had is, I need these orders immediately from the very beginning if there's orders. That's what I'm asking for. That way there's no, because I don't want to stand out here in front of the school. I don't want to stand out here in front of the school and try to figure this out. So that's what I've been working on. I don't have an answer for you. Like I said, I've spent at least 2 hours on the phone with our attorney. You mentioned the Carlisle case, reading through all of that. I'm just trying to educate myself as much as possible. And the Carlisle case wasn't out there until this morning. At least I didn't see it until this. So I'm constantly trying to, because I just want to do what I'm supposed to do. Okay. Thank you.
Kirk Bailey. Just nationally, the COVID response, the COVID policy has just become completely ad hoc and reactive. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no strategy. There's no end game. There's no consensus on what we want to achieve from all of this. There's no metrics for success. There's no cost-benefit analysis being done on a national level. It's all just reactive. When we come through this nonsense and we have all these plans and everything in place and all the plans are just indefinite, that shows me people making the decisions had no idea what's going on. So we have to be the ones that provide the end game. We have to be the ones that provide the strategy. We have to be the ones that provide the metrics. I would say that whatever we do tonight, if there's going to be the policy come out, or if we're going to come up with a plan, whatever plan that we do in the short term, we need to come up with a supplementary plan that shows those metrics and shows that end game and shows that way out of this. Because just going indefinitely, they're going to keep pushing things on us and pushing and pushing and pushing. We have to fight. And if we don't fight right now, I get it. I understand. But if we don't fight right now, you guys are going to get a chance to fight again. And you're going to get a lot of it. And we have to start putting around on something. Otherwise, we're done. We're done. They're going to push us over the edge. There's been a paradigm shift in the last 10 months or so to where now we don't have that foundation under us anymore. Lots of schools are in this position. And we probably need to seek out those other schools because they're feeling the same thing. They're going to have to fight and claw for everything. So that's what I'd like to see out of this is if we come up with an interim plan, hey, whatever, but we got to have a supplementary plan, something that falls back on, something that's got some actual meat to it, some metrics, something that drives us to our next steps, something that drives us forward. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kirk Allen. I'm the co-founder of Denver County Watchdogs. About 11 years ago, we started our organization, and our focus was local government accountability. And we asked two questions, and some of them I heard tonight, one in particular I believe is from you. Says who, or maybe it was you, Rick. Says who with what proof? People say a lot of things. We read a lot of things. Where's the proof? And how do you identify what that proof is? A lot of folks say, go to Google. I quit Google a long time ago. DuckDuckGo gives me far more information. We all know what's going on. In March 15th of 2020, we were the first in the state of Illinois to publish the due process rights of quarantine. We were the first. We begged lawyers to stand up and fight for our rights because they were being trampled by the Illinois Department of Public Health and local health departments. We've been vindicated because we were absolutely right, because we quoted the law. We quoted the case law that went with it. That was March 15th. How many have ever read the state influenza plan? The Illinois State Influenza Plan, I believe it's on page 67, you don't lock down. You absolutely do not lock down, and it gives the reasons. What did we do? We didn't follow the plan. We did something entirely different. I don't know why we did all those different things. I have no idea. But I know as a retired Air Force vet, as a fire chief and as an EMT, I stopped believing what people tell me, not because I don't trust them as an individual. It's that I have to trust and verify. And I don't rush trust. Do not rush trust. Just because someone tells you, just because your lawyer said something, well, says who? What background does he have? You know, when you go to court, there's two lawyers. I understand you're a lawyer. Was there a lawyer on the board? Well, we'll pretend you are, and you are, okay? You two go to court. Guess what? One of you loses. So who was right? Okay? They're not always right. And that's where reading the case law and looking at the backgrounds of what's going on in all the in-depth studies, I, for myself, my mom was a nurse for 42 years, and one thing I learned was research. Where do we see the public education, we're educators, Where's the public education on preventative health measures? What are we teaching our kids about what we need to do that puts us in a better position to fight a bug of any kind, whether it's COVID or anything else? We're not hearing it from the national level. I don't know what's in your policy tonight as far as the mask mandate. I'm not an anti-masker. But I will share a story with you that happened in Coles County. And you need to think about how are we going to deal with this. And we've got some nurses here, and I appreciate it, especially when you talk about, trying to all day keep a mask on and do it right. There's a process to it. Well, in Coles County, and before I get to that, how many board members have been trained to recognize the symptoms of hypoxia? How many know what hypoxia is? Okay, there's a few. It's lack of oxygen. You read a study, and it gave all the symptoms of things they saw in that study. Well, my question is, how many of those were directly related to hypoxia? Lack of oxygen is the problem with hypoxia. In Coles County, they had a mask mandate. And a child, some didn't want to wear masks, some did. But a child comes to school, and their parent wanted 2 masks. Why? Because that's what she saw in the news. And she was fearful. Fine, 2 masks. The child passed out of school. And they said it was from lack of oxygen. Now, I don't know if they did the studies to truly see, did they put a pulse ox on the kid and confirm it? I don't know. I just know that a kid passed out because he had 2 masks. And they said once they took the mask off, he got better and everything was fine. Well, if we don't have the training to witness or be able to identify what a hypoxic situation is, why is that kid falling asleep? Maybe he shouldn't be wearing that for that long. Everybody's symptoms are different. When I went through flight status, we had to go through an altitude chamber, and every one of us had to learn what our symptoms were. And the reason being, depending on your symptom, some people it's euphoria. Everything is just happy. You don't care about anything, which means you're not going to grab your oxygen to solve your problem. Fortunately for me, it was nausea. When I get nauseous at altitude, I know it's lack of oxygen. That's my symptom. I know I need to grab my mask. Everybody's symptoms are different. But are we even trained to recognize any of those symptoms? That we're going to mask everybody? If you're going to mask everybody, think about some timelines and some break times. And I mean that with all seriousness, because Coles County was just one of many cases that we get information on and tips on from all across the state. When we say says who with what proof, we've begged boards before you make a vote, where in the law does it give you the power to vote the way you're going to vote? Do you have that power delegated to you? ISBE doesn't have the power, they're wailing. They don't. It takes time for that to get through the court system, which is the downside. But for those, and I grew up as skinny as a rail kid that got picked on pretty much all the way through high school. Boy, I'd love to go back to high school. What's the best message for a bully? You stand up to him. You put your sword in the sand, and you stand up to him, and you have an honest debate and discussion about what is right. And I personally believe COVID is here. It ain't going anywhere. Okay? I've had it. I'm fine. Didn't take me 3.5 days, and we're literally within 24 hours of my positive test, I was symptom-free. But that's because of measures that I took. But we're not teaching any of those measures. We're wanting to send kids home. We want to send them home and wait to see if they get sicker. How many people ever get a disease and wait to see if you get sicker? That's not common sense, people. We need to stand up and talk common sense. We don't do that with our own health concerns. If you get cancer, you're fighting to get in there to start treatments. We don't wait. Why do we send people home and wait until their lips are blue? Oh, get a pulse oximeter. How many people even know what a pulse oximeter is? And they're telling them to check it at home. When you get down to below 90, then maybe you ought to come talk to us. Well, what were they before they even got to 90? There's some people that are at 90. We don't even know what their baselines are. Stand up and ask the tough questions and don't be bullied into a decision or rushed into a decision. This matter is in the courts. Take your time. I beg you to take your time and represent the people that put you here. Whatever decision you make, they're the ones that put you here. They're the ones that will take you out if they don't agree. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to say, I'm not going to argue people's rights. I don't care about what the governor says. I don't even care about what ISBE says. What I care about is what you guys are going to do to keep the kids safe and healthy and keep them in school, like you said. As many out of quarantine as possible. And if that means masks, let's do it. Who cares? It is a piece of cloth, and I know people are going to say, it's my rights. But that's not your guys' job. Your guys' job is not to fight for my rights. That's my job. Your guys' job is to keep our kids safe and healthy. Every year, my kids go through a shooter drill on the first day of school. It tears me apart that they have to learn this, okay? I hate that they have to do it. But I know you guys do it to keep them safe. This year, I came home and I cried after dropping my kids off at school because I did not feel like they were safe. I did not feel like you guys had their backs. There was nothing put in place. Nothing, I feel like. My children wear masks, that's fine. They get bullied on a daily basis because they wear a mask. All right, I don't want that. I don't want to argue. I don't want to fight with these people. I don't want them to fight with me. You know, your rights are your rights. Great. I don't care. I could care less about people's rights when it comes to our children's health. That's all I care about. I want as many kids as possible in school. I want kids to have lunch. What about all these kids in quarantine that aren't eating lunch, that their parents can't feed them? We were so worried about that in March of 2019, nobody's thinking about that now. What about the kids who are home for 14 days, who are getting abused? Nobody's thinking about that now. And all it will take, from what I'm hearing, is this. I'm just asking you, please, just do whatever it takes to keep as many kids in school as possible. Not the governor saying, not the president, not ISBE, you guys, just do what's right. Thank you.
I have something to say, but I don't want to be on camera, so I'm going to stand here and say it. I wish I had that.
You can come to mine.
Hi, I'm Shipman, and I'm a mother of 3 that go to this school, and I want to stand here and tell you, for my kids, they came home every day last year from wearing that mask, and I had to fight with them daily to get them to do their homework and not go to sleep on me. Do you know how hard that is? I have 3 that are special needs children, and I have to fight with them to get them to do their homework because they just want to sleep because that mask is on them all day. This year, my oldest daughter is the only one that had homework. She sat at that table last night and did her homework, and I didn't have to fight her for the first time in a year to do her homework. Do you know how great that felt? I wish everybody, every parent could see what I went through last night because that was a big relief for me. Big. And my daughter sitting right there, she's my middle one, and I'm telling you, she's a handful. But last year, she wouldn't even argue with me. She'd just go to sleep. This year, she comes home from school with a smile on her face, happy to see me. Mom, my day went so good. I didn't get that last year. She's too tired to tell me. Just something for you guys to think about. understanding of the quarantine issues, if there is universal masking, can you tell us about quarantine if we overturn our mask policy?
Again, this is the revised public school health guidance, and this is on the state board website if you want to refer to it. But on page 17, it has 3 options, and option 1 is the 14-day exposure period. Option 2 is 10 calendar days if the student doesn't have any symptoms. But again, it says for classrooms where masking is strictly adhered to as required, and physical distance of 3 to 6 feet is accepted for return. Then option 3 is quarantine period for 7 calendar days, starting on the 6th day or after if someone tests, and they're not symptomatic, of course, that they can return to school. And again, it says for classrooms where masking is strictly adhered to as required. One other thing that I need to point out, based on your question, is that the guidance we're given from the health department for schools that do not require masking is 6 feet for 15 minutes exposure over a 24-hour period, and with universal masking, it's 3 feet or less. So it cuts down the area that you would do the close contact, the close proximity tracing as well.
And does the vaccination status of the student come into play at all with quarantine?
Yes, it's my understanding that the students vaccinated, they're not close contacted. Period. So even if they, like today, if one was within 6 feet and somebody was positive next to them, even without, if they have the vaccine, then they're not close contact quarantine.
Now, is that with a mask and without a mask?
That's my understanding. If anybody that's vaccinated is not quarantined, is my understanding. And I'm referring to this. I'm doing my best to answer your questions. I read this and read this and read this along with a bunch of other stuff.
It's ever changing.
And it does change all the time. And also just this document with this cover has several different versions, and it changes all the time. And so each time I look at it, I go to the state board site and I download the latest copy because it does change.
Because my understanding was that both parties would have to be vaccinated, but that has changed. That's the most recent information that you have?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
And what Jesse said, if they're not symptomatic, the person would only quarantine if they became symptomatic. When Jesse said if they're vaccinated. So a vaccinated person would not quarantine unless they became symptomatic. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, did you hear that? A vaccinated person, if they're symptomatically quarantined, somebody that's not symptomatic. And that's the same thing with the 10 days and the testing and the 6 days. If you're symptomatic, you have to stay home. Thank you.
Right, my health kindergartner is not vaccinated, fully masked, has to go in quarantine no matter what, with a mask or without a mask, because it's close contact.
If the school does not require universal masking, it's 6 feet. If the school does, it's 3 feet, is my understanding, for non-vaccinated. If everybody's masked, it goes to 3 feet or less, which would obviously cut down a bunch of people for the proximity range. Is that what you're?
Right, but you're still saying that my kindergartner, fully masked, required in school, he can still go in quarantine even though he's fully masked all day in compliance, and he's still putting him in quarantine even though he's masked. With those guidelines. With 3 feet.
If it was less than 3 feet. If it was less than 3 feet, yes.
Yeah, I got a question. How long is recess? No, seriously. Is it more than 15 minutes?
20 minutes? I assume it's close.
Yeah, it's 20 minutes.
So is somebody out there that's not watching the kid going, okay, they're within level for 7 minutes, okay, good. Okay, you've been around him for, they went to 10. How are you keeping track of who's been around anybody for 15 minutes within 3 feet on a playground?
On the way that you're here on actually on the same page, he has, if close contact is outside, they do not constitute being close contact.
So me usually hold
Yes, if they're not symptomatic, they don't have to quarantine, that's correct. So if we did a close contact quarantine right now, and we're within 6 foot of each other, and he's vaccinated, he does not have to close contact quarantine.
Okay. To me, this is kind of the idiocracy of this. Not of any of you, but what we're getting from other government officials, whatever. It's been flat stated that even though you're vaccinated, you can be a carrier. So you can have 0 symptoms because you got vaccinated and run around that classroom and spread it to every single other kid in there because you weren't required to quarantine. That's insane. And that's not you guys' fault. Like, clarify that is not you guys' fault when it goes to school. But that is the type of thing that it really irks me. You guys are expected to make a good informed decision when some of this information that you guys are being tasked makes 0 sense whatsoever.
I really appreciate your comment because the other side of it, we've already recovered.
Yeah.
Because now, or at least today, there's some peer-reviewed studies that prove those who have recovered have far more immunities to even the Delta variant than those that are vaccinated. That is now a peer-reviewed study. This is the type of information that has to be gathered, collected, and used to push back for good policies. That's all I got.
My name is Carrie Hayes, and I just have a couple of questions. We are getting this directive, and according to a law that has not been passed, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't comment on this current law.
Okay.
I've been advised not to comment on the current law.
Okay.
Because I've been advised not to say what our position is or not as far as future legal action
Okay.
that we may choose or not choose to take. So I've read the law, I've read the proposal, I've read the excerpts from it. So that's all I can tell you right now, sorry.
Okay, so if we do hypothetically go forward and do the mask mandating, and then this does not go into effect, will we then default back to where we are right now? Because we would have voted tonight to move forward on mask mandating based on a law that's in a proposal state that's not passed.
I would assume that would be another board action. If anything changed, if they decided to change something tonight, we would change again with that law. I mean, any type of law or any type of changes or any type of data, we would evaluate that and meet again.
Okay, and then also, at any time has the school board thought of, we're trying to follow mask mandating now, what happens when the state says we're going to vaccinate all of your children? Will we then go forward with that as well in our schools?
Yeah. I've not heard anything about mandatory vaccines for kids, but I mean, I've heard people talk about it. I've not seen anything or heard anything about that.
Okay, I just asked because there's a proposal right now to mask when your community did not want to mask. The last 2 school boards, people have showed up and said, we do not want this. So my question is, if they come back and say, you have to vaccinate, and your community comes forward and says, we do not want this, will we then be forced to then vaccinate our children? Because based on what the state's telling us, making us do, when it's not a law.
And that falls right now, the mandate from the governor to force the staff to vaccinate. I mean, we haven't really talked about that tonight. The staff, I'm curious if that is the staff have to get vaccinate.
My question is just that if we're going to follow the mask mandate based on law that's not in effect, essentially, where does that end? Where do we stop that? And I would love an answer to that.
I don't have an answer. I don't have. It's a good question. It's a great question. I understand exactly where you're going and the point you're making. But I don't have it.
It doesn't stop.
I do have a question. Who mandates the vaccination that the kids have to, like, I've just been doing 6th grade physicals and whatnot.
Okay, thank you.
I was just trying to go along with you. Like, who mandates that? Like, is that from the ownership? Is that like federal? I should know, because we all do that.
For measles and all.
Yes, for measles, not like, where does that? The state, so that also comes, because that's a very good question. My children aren't 12, so then obviously I haven't had a chance to deal with that yet. But I was just curious where that came from.
And there's opt-outs for that as well.
Yeah.
If people have religious exemptions or any type of exemptions.
Right.
For all the current ones, there's exemptions for all.
Mine's over here real quick. I don't want to walk down, but I just have a question. Okay, so since the CDC does not recommend single-layer masks, does that basically mean that all of the kids wear, the ones that we buy at Walmart, all the masks don't have to be double layered for every kid that walks into school, and who's going to place that and make sure that is what is going on? If the board passes the mask mandate to follow these rules. I mean, how are we going to place that? Is the school going to provide it? I mean, are they all going to be N95 masks like the lady down there is wearing? Or is it going to be these single layer paper ones that? That's a serious question, because I know a lot of kids wear the gaiters, they wear the homemade mask that do absolutely no good. I mean, I'm thinking just EI working safety every day, I kind of know how this stuff works, so I'm just curious if that's how we're going to place it and we're going to provide it.
Last year, we didn't stipulate what kind of mask that they wore, and at every entrance, at every school bus, we had boxes of masks that were provided if they would, if they didn't have their own. But we didn't stipulate what type of mask that they wore.
But the CDC guidelines say that the single-layer masks don't protect them whatsoever, so if they're following it in a big old blank print in that book, which says, so if we're following the whole mandated law, we need to do it right or not do it. I mean, that means we need to make sure the kids, if we're worried about protecting the kids, the single-layer masks do not work. And the double-layer masks is the gentleman down there. Basically killing our kids over time. It just happens that it's a fact that it doesn't work. It is true. I mean, we can't follow this parts of it, not follow the whole way. It kind of goes out the whole system, like within the safety policy.
Anybody else?
I wasn't going to talk. I agree with Kirk. When the best way to address a bully is to stand up to the bully. We know the State Board of Education doesn't have the power to revoke the school district's recognition. I don't believe they have the power to refuse to honor high school diplomas. Can you imagine any court in this state telling a student your diploma's no good because you didn't wear a mask? I know you were in the same school, had the same teachers, had the same books, had the same school coursework, had the same instruction, passed the same tests, did everything to graduate, but you're no good because you didn't wear a mask. No, there's no court in this state that's going to let that one fly. And the State Board of Education, I don't believe they have the power to do that either. Whether you vote for the mask or not, that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you to vote for it or against it, but the governor had said last week that if school districts want N95 masks, he's got them on hand, just ask. So if you want free N95 masks, just ask. According to his memo, he's got a warehouse full. He's waiting on somebody to ask him. I had something else about family laws. Thanks. If you're still on the fence and you want to comply with the law if it ever gets passed to give ISD the authority, amend your motion to make mandatory masks only effective upon passage and signing of that bill into law by the governor. They don't have to have
Okay, not hearing to see anybody else coming up, we will close comments from employees in the public. Okay, now we have one action item on the agenda tonight. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the 2020-22 updated COVID-19 protocol for the 2021-2022 school year. Any motion? Motion by Musgrave, seconded by Lewis.
Motion by Musgrave and seconded by Lewis to approve the 2021-2022 updated COVID-19 protocol for the 2021-2022 school year. Bailey.
Yay.
Lehman.
Nay.
Lewis.
Yay.
Musgrave.
Yay.
Kingston.
Nay.
Pusey. Parks.
Yay. That was a 4-2 vote to pass the protocol, one abstaining. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn at
Chairman, point of order. If you could comply with Section 2E of the Open Meetings Act and recite with sufficient information to inform the public what that policy is, I'd appreciate it.
We can't do that.
Should have been before the vote.
Oblong CSD number 4, 21-22 school year updated protocol. Oblong Community Unit School District number 4 plans to provide in-person instruction to start on Friday, August 20, 2021. We'll return with the same full day regular pre-pandemic. Remote learning will not be offered unless a notice provided for remote learning by a medical professional. Remote learning will be provided by a third-party vendor only. Enhanced sanitation measures will be maximized. On August 4th, 2021, the governor issued Executive Order 2021-18, which requires the wearing of masks inside pre-K-12 schools by all students, staff, visitors over the age of 2. A separate federal order from January 29th, 2021 requires the driver and all passengers on our school buses to wear masks. Oblong CUSD number 4 will comply with these orders. Oblong CUSD number 4 will not gather COVID-19 vaccination status for students and staff. No COVID-19 tests will be conducted on school grounds. Morning and school bus symptom procedures will be eliminated. Oblong CUSD number 4 will continue to encourage students, parents, and staff to stay home if they feel sick. If a student tests positive for COVID-19, the CCHD will perform contact tracing and quarantine of the students per Illinois law. Oblong CUSD number 4 will communicate and cooperate with CCHD and IDPH inquiries and directives when required by law. Extracurricular activities, including sports, band, chorus clubs, and others, will return to pre-pandemic activity with no restrictions. Spectators will return to extracurricular activities with no limitations on maximum spectators and no restrictions. Summer activities, including summer school and extracurricular activities, will resume to pre-pandemic within the same deadline set for fall 2021, opening effective immediately. Practices, including additional cleaning of commons areas, pick-up, drop-off procedures, limited visitor access, visitors. Pass will be used for handbook, cleaning wipes available in classrooms, and water bottles available will continue this time. The Board of Education may adjust this plan as deemed necessary. One other thing, we've got a lot of work to do as far as informing students and staff about the complying with these orders. And so we'd like to have the day tomorrow to inform them of that and explain all that before we start asking them to comply on Thursday.
But if you choose to pass that, and say you're not going to gather, like, testing, and then they pass that I have to be vaccinated or be tested, but you've already put in that you will not gather testing, what does that do to me if I refuse to take the vaccine and you pass that?
That's a good question, and we may be in violation again. I mean, with this mandate as far as it's collecting the testing information. I've not seen anything. No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
I'm just curious, if you go ahead and pass that and say we're not going to gather that data,
Yeah.
and then they say I have to either be vaccinated or give that week the data.
No, I understand your concern, but, I mean, we'll have to look at that again as far as the testing or the vaccine. I want you to, because you're great at it.
Question Thursday, do you have N95 masks ready available for my students when they come back to the case when we don't work?
Could you repeat again what is going to be the disciplinary action on a student who refuses to wear masks since it is so school passing?
There will not be any suspension, expulsion, anything like that. I'm really hoping that we can explain to students, hey, the school board approved this. We're asking you to do this. Please comply. I don't want to make it any more difficult for them than it has to be. And one of my major concerns, I'll tell you, at the high school level, I don't have to wield a whole lot of discipline there. I just ask kids to do things, and they usually do it because they know that I'll do anything to help them, and they usually do what I ask. And I'm really concerned about the concept of some kid coming in and his dad told him not to wear a mask and his principal's asking him to wear one and how that makes him feel. So I'm very sensitive to that. And I want to make sure that I reach out to those kids and talk to them. I don't want them to feel like that they're doing something wrong or whatever. So I'm really hoping through a conversation we reach out and have conversations with those kids so we don't make a bad situation even worse. I hope that answers your question.
What about my 15-year-old who can't even go into Walmart for an hour without going through the bathroom towel because he's got a mask on? What am I going to do to prevent that from happening?
I'll talk to you specifically about that.
Why don't you turn the camera off so we can be on camera? So there's nothing on record, we just get it all out there. So nobody, no record of Mr. Guy say, hey, you know what? We already were making our masks, maybe the teaching record on enforcement of that. If you can't read, they can ask down your homework. That's a possibility. Or are we going to have what we call mask police walking up and down the hallway saying, you're not going to get it.
We took a lot of breaks last year, and we made sure that everything we knew to do, that wasn't an issue. I don't want kids uncomfortable. I mean, I don't. I mean, I want to follow the rules. I want to comply. I don't want kids uncomfortable. I want them to come here and be happy. Thank you. Thank you.
Can we take the classrooms outside? Don't build those out there.
Okay, with that being said, we're going to adjourn at 7:24 p.m.